This actually happened to me, I want to say, about 3 years ago now. I'd been living in America for a while, building a life, but I really missed my mom back in Pakistan. So I booked a flight, decided to go back home for a visit. It was a big deal. First thing I wanted to do when I got there, even before seeing my mom, was go to the cemetery. My father, he passed away pretty young, and I hadn't been back to his grave in years. I just needed to pay my respects, have a quiet moment with him. So I'm walking through the rows. The air is thick and warm, and I finally find his headstone. I'm kneeling there, just thinking, when I hear some voices, familiar ones nearby. I look up, and I swear it was the Khans, our old neighbors from back home, from my childhood. It was the whole family, the mother, the father, their kids, all grown up now. They were standing by another grave, looked like they were visiting a relative, too. We recognized each other instantly. It was kind of a shock, like, what are the odds of running into them here? We exchanged condolences, for my father and for whoever they'd lost. Then we just started catching up, right there in the cemetery, talking about what everyone was doing, how things had changed. It felt nice, actually, a little piece of home. Before I left the Khan family, they actually invited me to join them for tea. There's this small pavilion, in the cemetery itself where families can gather, talk, or just relax. They said to come over, catch up a bit more, which sounded good to me. So I walked over with them, and we sat at one of the stone tables. We probably talked for maybe another hour, just sipping hot tea, kind of watching the sunset over the headstones. I remember I took out my lighter at one point, just fiddling with it, put it on the table next to my cup. After that, I finally made my way to my mom's place. She was so happy to see me, honestly. It was a really warm welcome. We sat down and I started telling her all about my day, about visiting my father's grave and everything. And of course, I told her about running into the Khans, our old neighbors at the cemetery. I was like, Mom, you'll never guess who I saw today. The whole Khan family, they were there. We had tea at the pavilion. She just stopped, like mid-sentence. Her face went totally blank, and then she looked at me like I was crazy. She said, "What are you talking about? That's impossible." She said it so flatly, It got me. She goes, "Son, the Khans, the entire family, they died in a car accident 3 years ago. All of them. There's no way you could have seen them. You must be confused. It must have been a different family." But I knew it wasn't. I knew their faces. I tried to argue with her, telling her no, it was them. I talked to them for ages. We had tea. But she was just shaking her head, absolutely adamant. I mean, my mom doesn't lie. She just kept saying it was impossible. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe her, and I couldn't believe that I could be so wrong. So, I don't know, maybe an hour later I grabbed my keys, and I just drove straight back to the cemetery. I had to see it for myself. I had to prove her wrong, or prove myself crazy. The main gate was still open, which was lucky. I drove straight to where the pavilion was, the one where we'd had tea. But as I got closer, I could see it. The whole place, it was totally different. It was completely locked up. The metal grill over the entrance was rusted shut. Cobwebs, thick, dusty ones, were hanging everywhere, draped over the benches, clinging to the stone tables. It looked like it hadn't been used, honestly, in years. I just stood there, staring. My mind just couldn't make sense of it. And then I walked right up to the table, the very table where I'd been sitting earlier that day. And right there, nestled next to where my teacup would have been. It was my lighter, the silver one, the one I always carry. It was just sitting there on that dusty, cobweb-covered stone table, right where I'd placed it that afternoon. I still don't know who I spoke to that day. This whole thing happened maybe 3 years ago. I was burnt out after college, just trying to figure some stuff out. So I went backpacking in Thailand, totally solo. Started in Chiang Mai, hitting the usual hostels. Mostly good, just what I thought I needed. One night at the Chill House hostel, everyone laughing. I was just nursing a beer, feeling out of place. This guy came up, older, maybe early 40s. He slid onto the stool next to me without a word, just watching the crowd. He introduced himself as Mark or something. Then he started asking weird questions. Not the usual traveler stuff. Alone? How long without family? Firm plans or winging it? It felt too personal, too interested in how truly isolated I was. I just brushed it off. Figured he was lonely. Looking back, that should have been the first red flag. I said, yeah, winging it, trying to change the subject. Told him I was heading north, looking for quiet. He just listened, head tilted, that too intense gaze. Next morning, I packed and caught a bus. I wanted a smaller village. Ended up in Ban Mai, northern Thailand, 5 hours from Chiang Mai. Just guest houses, one street, jungle. Exactly what I needed. Found a room at the Riverview Guest House. I was there 3 days. One afternoon walking back from the market, I saw him. The guy from the hostel. He was by the bus stop, leaning, watching the road. Tiny village. What are the odds? He saw me and that same slow, too-wide smile spread. He waved, called, "Small world, huh?" I forced a smile. He asked where I was staying. I said, "Riverview." He just nodded. Nice. Quiet place. How would he know? He hadn't been there. He was just watching, always watching. That night I felt really uneasy. Double-checked the bolt lock, backpack against the door. I showered for 30 minutes. When I came back, the wooden window latch I knew I'd closed was unhooked. Just slightly, like someone had tried it or opened it, then closed it. I slammed it shut, hooked the latch, pulled the curtain. My heart was thumping. I knew I hadn't left it. I tried telling myself it was wind, but I knew. Then I heard it. A soft, almost inaudible scrape right outside my door, like a shoe shifting. So I'm sitting there, still, holding my breath. Heartbeat in my ears. Air thick. I hear it again, that faint scraping. Closer. Right outside my door. I can almost feel someone standing. And I swear I hear faint breathing. Not mine. Something else. Heavy and slow. I reach for my phone, but there's no signal. Nothing. Texting family, even an SOS, but bars stay empty. My hand is shaking. No real weapon, just my hiking boots. I grab one, backing into the far corner behind the bed. No escape, no help coming. Then it happens. The doorknob. It starts to turn, slowly, deliberately, not jiggling. It just rotates clockwise. The bolt lock scrapes, a tiny deafening sound. It turns, then stops. The soft click of the lock retracting. It was opening, I knew it. I froze. Couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. Staring at that door, the knob still. Then, from the other side, a whisper. So quiet I almost imagined it. But no, it was my name. Alex. Just my name. Breathed out, like a question, through the crack. I didn't move. I just waited. I don't know how long I stayed there. Eventually, the presence faded. I waited until dawn, a sliver of gray light. I crept out, didn't pack everything. Ran to the bus stop, Hopped on the first bus south, made it to Bangkok, booked the first flight home. I didn't stop running until I was on that plane. It's been 3 years. I'm back home trying to forget it. But sometimes it still gets to me. I was looking through old travel photos on my phone the other day, reminiscing. I found this picture I took the very first night at the Chill House hostel before I even met that guy. It was a blurry group selfie, everyone smiling. I zoomed in to see faces, and then I saw him. In the deep background, half hidden behind a palm tree. He's there, standing out of focus, looking directly at me, into the camera. Long before he ever walked up, he was already there, watching. He wasn't a stranger I met. He was just waiting. This actually happened to my dad, like way before I was even born, back in the 80s. He was living in Iraq at the time, specifically in this old area of Ramadi. It wasn't anything fancy, just a standard compound. You know what they call all the houses over there. His family, my grandparents, and his siblings, they were really religious. I mean, very devout. There were always prayer rugs out, religious texts everywhere. You know, the type of family where faith was just at the center of absolutely everything they did. So one night, it was deep, deep in the middle of the night, my dad said everyone was fast asleep. The whole compound was quiet. You know, that really heavy silence you only get in a place like that when the city just shuts down completely. And then suddenly there was this sharp, insistent knock at the main gate. This was maybe 2:30, pushing 3 in the morning, and my dad said it just echoed through the stillness. Just one hard, clear knock, then silence. My dad was honestly so confused. Probably a little annoyed, too. I mean, who in the world would be knocking on their door at that hour? It was just completely unheard of in their community, like a total violation of basic common sense. He slowly got up, kind of squinting through the dark, and went to the door. He peered through the peephole first, just to be safe, then cautiously unlatched it and opened it just a crack. And there, standing on their doorstep, was this old man. He looked really ancient, probably 70, 80 years old, honestly. And he was just standing there, completely still, dressed in this all-white gown, like a traditional thobe. He didn't move, just stood there, staring straight ahead. The old man just stared straight at him, no expression really, and then he spoke. His voice was quiet, raspy, and he asked, "Is this the family of Al-Tariq?" My dad, still half asleep and confused, just said, "Yeah, that's us." And that's when the old man just delivered it, plain as day. He said, "We are very sorry for the loss of Ibrahim Al-Tariq." And my dad just froze. Ibrahim was his brother, my uncle. But my dad had no idea what he was talking about. He was totally confused, like what? Ibrahim was fine. He just thought, okay, this must be some kind of crazy old homeless guy. Or just someone who was confused and lost. There's no way this random stranger could know anything about his family. So my dad just kind of mumbled, "Okay, thanks," and quickly, firmly shut the door and bolted it. He figured the guy would just wander off. He went back to bed, still a bit unsettled, but trying to convince himself it was nothing important. He tried to sleep and eventually did. The sun came up and everything seemed normal again. He woke up, went about his morning routine, still thinking about that weird knock, but putting it out of his mind, trying to shake it off. But then maybe around 9 or 10 that morning, the phone rang. It was his sister-in-law, my aunt. And she was crying, just completely distraught. She said that Ibrahim, my uncle, had passed away during the night, sometime around 2 a.m. That's when it hit my dad. The blood just drained from his face, he said. He looked at the clock, then remembered the old man, and it just clicked into place. The old man knew. He knew about Ibrahim's death hours before anyone else in the family did. My dad said it was the creepiest thing he ever lived through. Who was that man? How did he know about Ibrahim's death before the news even reached the family? And how on earth did he know exactly where to find them, in that specific compound, at that specific time? He never saw the old man again, never got any answers. To this day, he still thinks about it. He just couldn't shake it, couldn't explain it. He said that memory, that knock at the door, still keeps him up at night sometimes. This happened to me years ago, when I was a younger man living in a small village in India. Honestly, I've never really told anyone the whole thing, not with all the details. Me and my wife, we just had one of those stupid, fiery arguments. You know how it is? Over something completely trivial now, I can't even remember. But I was so mad, I just grabbed my things and walked out, decided I'd stay with my friend Ramesh for the night. His place wasn't far, maybe a 30-minute walk. Just a simple mud brick house, thatch roof, out past the rice paddies. A real old family home, you know. Generations had lived there. It was humble, sure, no chairs or tables, just a few mats on the floor, some clay pots for cooking. That's how it was for most of us back then. Nothing fancy, we just sat there, cross-legged on the floor, eating a simple curry with our hands, talking about nothing much. And when we were done, we cleaned up, meticulously. Every single plate, every pot, put back on the shelf. I remember it clear as day. I'm positive. Ramesh, he had a night shift at the local textile mill. So he grabbed his bag, told me to get some rest, and headed out into the dark, and I was alone. Or so I thought. I just remember lying there on a thin mat, staring up at the ceiling, my mind still buzzing from the fight. And then it started. This faint porcelain clinking. From the kitchen downstairs. Just soft at first, then a little louder. I stumbled out of bed, half asleep, my eyes barely open, just thinking, what in the world? And when I got down there, the sight just stopped me cold. Every single dish, every clay pot, the cooking ladle, all of it just scattered across the dirt floor. Everywhere. It made absolutely no sense. Now, here's the thing. I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that we had cleaned up, and Ramesh was gone. So who could have done this? But I was exhausted, honestly. So I just sighed, picked everything up again, stacking it carefully, putting the pots back on their pegs, telling myself it was just maybe a stray cat got in, or I was dreaming, you know, just trying to rationalize it away. I'd barely drifted back to sleep, maybe an hour, maybe 2, I don't know the exact time. But then it came again, louder this time. A frantic, almost violent clattering, like someone was just throwing things around. Smash, clank, scrape. My heart just started hammering against my ribs, you know? Like a bird trapped in a cage. I threw off the mat and rushed downstairs. And there it was, again. The exact same mess. Plates shattered, pots overturned, food remnants smeared on the floor. And at that moment, a cold dread just washed over me. This wasn't a cat. This wasn't a dream. Ramesh. It had to be Ramesh, playing some kind of cruel joke on me. So I started calling his name, my voice a bit shaky now. Ramesh? Come on, this isn't funny. Where are you? I searched every single room in that house. The small bedroom, the storage shed attached to the back, even looked under the bed. behind the big old chests. Nothing. Completely, utterly empty. You have to picture this, really. Me standing in the middle of this old dark house, knowing for a fact I was the only living soul inside. And yet, the mess was there. Twice. I could feel a terrible, deep wrongness, you know? This wasn't just a prank. It was something else. I didn't try to clean it again. I just sat there on the floor, huddled against the wall, watching the doorway to the kitchen. Every shadow, every creak. My eyes just wide open. I didn't sleep a wink. I just waited for the sun to come up. For Ramesh to come back. Just waited. When the first light started to creep through the windows, and I heard the familiar sound of Ramesh's sandals approaching, I honestly almost cried with relief. He walked in, humming a little tune, looked at me, covered in dust, sitting there like a ghost. I blurted it all out, everything. The noises, the dishes, how I'd searched the empty house, the whole terrifying night. And he just laughed. A big, booming laugh. "Oh, you must have been dreaming, my friend," he said. "Too much worry, you know. Go home. Make up with your wife. It's nothing." I wanted to believe him. I really did. I gathered my things, walked back to my own village, and found my wife. I started apologizing, explaining where I'd been. I told her the whole story about Ramesh's house and the strange night. And as I was talking, I saw her face change. The color it drained away, like water from a bowl. Her eyes got wide, staring past me, almost through me. And she just whispered, "Ramesh?" And then she said, her voice barely audible, "Your friend Ramesh, he died 7 years ago in a terrible accident on the road. His family moved away and sold that house years back." I still don't know what to do with that memory. I never went back to that house. But every now and then, late at night, I think about those dishes. And I think about who or what I spent that night with. This actually happened maybe three and a half years ago now. I was in my early 20s, feeling like I needed to figure some stuff out, you know? Like I'd read that biography of Steve Jobs, how he went to India and really found his vision there. I wasn't going that far, but I had this idea of backpacking through Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, just like clear my head, find some perspective. I started in Bangkok, just bouncing between hostels, doing the whole tourist thing. Pretty quickly, I made my way to Chiang Mai, which is where things started to get weird, I guess. Nothing major at first, just little things. There's this hostel called the Wanderer's Nest. Pretty basic, but good vibe. They had a rooftop bar, and that's where I met him. He was Australian, maybe a couple years older than me, really fit guy, kind of intense eyes, but super friendly at first. He kept calling himself Liam. He was telling everyone how he'd been doing the whole find yourself thing for like 6 months already. He even mentioned the Steve Jobs book. I remember thinking, oh, cool, a kindred spirit. We talked for hours that night about travel plans, life, what we were hoping to get out of the trip. He asked a lot about my route, where I was headed next, for how long. Looking back, that was the first thing that should have tipped me off, you know? He wasn't just asking, "What's your next stop?" He was like, "So, after Pai, are you doing Luang Prabang for 2 weeks? Or just a quick stop before Hanoi?" Really specific, like he already had my itinerary. The next day, I was grabbing a coffee at this tiny place near the market, just chilling, planning my bus ride to Pai. and he just shows up. He's like, "Hey man, thought I'd find you here." Which was weird because I hadn't told him where I was going or which cafe. He just sat down like it was totally normal. He asked if I wanted to share a taxi to the bus station, which, I mean, fine. But on the way, he was talking about how he had this sixth sense for where people would be. I remember thinking it was kind of a creepy thing to say, but I just shrugged it off. We got to Pi, same hostel again. I was starting to feel a little claustrophobic, honestly. Like, everywhere I went, there he was. If I went to the waterfall, he'd just happen to be there, already swimming. If I went to the night market, he'd be at the food stall right next to mine. It wasn't aggressive, not at first. Just sways there, like a shadow. I started actively trying to avoid him. I'd leave early, take different routes, but it felt impossible. He always seemed to know. It was unsettling. This was maybe 4, 5 days in. I decided I was just going to leave Pi earlier than planned and go to Chiang Rai, a completely different direction. I didn't tell anyone. Booked a night bus for that evening. I even told the hostel manager I was staying another night, just to throw him off. I packed my small backpack, made sure my passport and money were deep down. It was getting dark, maybe 8 p.m. I was just sitting on my bunk, pretending to read, waiting for it to be time to sneak out to the bus station. The door to my dorm room was slightly ajar, like it always was. And then I heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible scratching sound coming from the hallway, right outside my door. Like fingernails on the rough plaster. It stopped. Then a soft tap. Just one. Not like a knock, more like testing the surface. My heart just started hammering. I wasn't just uneasy anymore, you know? I was frozen. I couldn't move. I could hear my own breathing loud in my ears. The door was still slightly open. I was staring at the crack, trying to see if I could see anything. And then, I swear to God, I saw it. Just a sliver of movement. Something dark, like a shadow, just for a second. Right in that crack. And then it was gone. But I heard it again, that soft tap, this time right on the door frame, like he was leaning against it. I'm telling you, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I knew it was him. I just knew. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. My phone was on the bed next to me, but I knew I couldn't reach for it without making a sound. I waited. Felt like an hour, probably only a minute. Then I heard a faint whisper just outside. My name. Alex? It was his voice, but it was flat, no warmth, just a sound. It chilled me to my core. That was it. I snapped. I somehow rolled off the bed silently and crawled under it. The room was dark, just a little light from the hall. I could see the bottom of the door. And then I saw a shadow fall across the floor, right under the door. And it just stayed there, not moving. I was probably under that bed for 30 minutes, maybe more, just listening. I heard soft footsteps pacing back and forth right outside. Then nothing. For a long time, finally I heard faint footsteps walking away, down the hall. I waited another 10 minutes, then very, very slowly I crawled out. I grabbed my backpack, not even bothering to put on my shoes. I opened the door just a crack, peered out. Hallway was empty. I tiptoed out, down the stairs and out the main entrance. I didn't stop. I ran all the way to the bus station, got on the first bus I could find, didn't even care where it was going. Just needed to get away from Pi, away from him. Eventually, I ended up in Laos, then flew home from there a week later. I never saw him again. When I finally got home a few months later, I saw a news report online about a string of disappearances in northern Thailand. young Western backpackers. One of them, an Australian guy named Liam. The police were looking for a person of interest, described as charismatic, a drifter. They had a blurry security camera photo. It was him. The guy I knew, not Liam. And the report said he seemed to specifically target travelers who were alone, often talking about a spiritual journey or finding themselves. Then, at the very end, the officer mentioned one of his common techniques, telling victims he was also inspired by Steve Jobs' journey to India to find himself. He never told me his name. I just assumed it was Liam because he kept calling himself Liam.